an hour ago. It sounds like a wonderful thing, which I would love to hear. I mean, all that calendrical, interesting stuff is stuff that is way above my. I go to Heap Cal, and then Heap Cal will tell me whether or not. Of course, that's a month. I don't know. The population of our services just went down significantly. No, but I hope you have a wonderful time. Yeah. What's that again? Wonderful. Don't go to Cancun though. I feel like then there's something crazy just happened in Cancun the other day. So yeah, no. They locked us in. Doors closed. Susie, how you doing? Oh, sort of the same way you just answered that question, I think. But have all the glasses wearing people? Have you figured out how to manage? No. Has anyone figured out? Isn't this like $1 million idea though? I was just gonna say, isn't it amazing that you don't have all these people who are, in some form of trouble? They run into things, or, you know, uh huh. Oh, that's interesting. So then you don't get as much venting back up again. Thankfully, this is the one. Well, all I can think of is there's the classic Steve Martin movie, The Jerk. I don't know if you've ever seen The Jerk. You never seen The Jerk? Oh, this is a movie that it would be impossible to show today. Its opening line is unfathomable. Right. Well, no. So like, there's the guy who invents the thing so he can take the glasses off and all of that stuff, and all right. So you know, just you and me. Do they load? No, they do not. She's not here every. We don't have the cantor every week. We're not Rod of Shalom people. We got. Oh, sorry. You know what? There's a little doohickey on the inside. Oh man, what is with this? The speakers here, they like to just turn off periodically, which is probably doohickey is a very technical term. Doohickey. It's in the Talmud there somewhere. I'm pretty sure. Actually, the truth is, though, the rabbis have all sorts of words that they use for circumstances like that. Like, my favorite one is whenever they want to talk about a generic person, the generic person's name is Plony ben Plony. Now, I'm not making this up. That is literally what it says in the Talmud. So anytime that they're having a conversation about, like Joe Schmo, that's the equivalent, basically, of, Plony ben Plony. Did you know that? Was that on your radar? See, we learned something already. Say that again? That one I'm not that, but that sounds legitimate. Oh, I see. I see. Okay, I understand. I understand. Okay. See, we're learning all sorts of stuff. It's very good. Well, good Shabbos, everybody. It is 6 o'clock. Keelan, I think we'll start with our usual warm up, if you don't mind. Yallai la 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 yallai la 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 yallai la 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 Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We're going to begin our service with lighting candles on page 120. If you're watching at home, you got candles, you're welcome to join along. Again, page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Okay, so we'll start our service on page 130, Lechuna Ranana, at the very top of the page.
Lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, ladonai. Lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, ladonai. Naria, naria, letzoi shenu nekadma fana betoda. Naria, naria, letzoi shenu. Mizmirot naria lo, lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, ladonai. Lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, lechuner hanena, ladonai.
Psalm 96 is on page 131.
Shiru ladonai, shiru shir chadash, shiru ladonai, kol haaretz. Shiru ladonai, baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato. Shiru ladonai, baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato. Shiru ladonai, shiru shir chadash, Shiru ladonai kol haaretz, shiru ladonai baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato. Shiru ladonai baruchu shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato.
Psalm 97 is on the bottom of page 132, or Zarua.
Or zarua latzadik, uleishrei lev simecha. Or zarua latzadik, ולאישרי לב שמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו.
Psalm 98 is on page 134 at the very top.
זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור בקול זמרה, בחצוצרות וקול שופר. הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושבי בה. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו. לפני אדוני כי בא לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, ועמים במישרים. ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושבי בה. נהרות ימחאו כף יחד, הרים ירננו.
We're now on page 135. Is this not? There we go. I don't know what's going on with this mic tonight, but just tell me if it drops out. You let me know. Now I can hear it. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Okay, page 135, Romamu.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להקודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להקודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להקודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להקודשו.
Psalm 29 is on page 136.
מזמור לדוד. הבו לאדוני בני אלים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז. הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש. כל אדוני על המים, אל הכבוד הרים. אדוני על מים רבים. אדוני על מים ניסים רבים. קול אדוני בכוח, קול אדוני בהדר. קול אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון. וירקידם כמו עגל, לבנון וסריון, כמו בן רמים, כמו בן רמים. קול אדוני חוצב לבוטש, קול אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש. קול אדוני יחולל איילות, ויחשוף יערות ובחלות. כולו מכבוד, כולו מכבוד, כולו מכבוד. אדוני למה בו ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
We'll turn now to Lechado D on page 138, and this week we'll do just the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. So same melody all the way through. Cool.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. 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 שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך Lecha dodi likrat kalam, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kalam, Penei Shabbat nekabela. We rise and face the entrance to the room. Bohi v'shalom ateret balam, Gam besimcha uvetzolam, Toch emunei aham segula, Boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi, Lecha dodi likrat kalam, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kalam, Penei Shabbat nekabela.
Okay, please be seated. We'll turn now to page 140, and we'll begin in the middle of the page, Tzadik Katamar, just where it indents in Hebrew.
Tzadik katamar yifrach, keres bavanon yiske, Shetulim Beveit Adonai, Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvun Beseva Deshenim Verahananim Yehu Lehagim Ki Yashar Adonai Tzuri velo Avlatabohu.
We rise for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'b'yomechon, u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'galaha, u'vizman kariv v'imeru. Amen. Yesh me Rabba mevarach, ya'alam li'al me'almaya, Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha brichu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushmechata benechematam da mihiran mehalmam veimeru. Amen. Now on page 146. Baruch hu et Adonai hamelorach. Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam vaed.
Please be seated. Let's read together on the top of page 149 in English. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way in which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam vaed, Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'aravim.
We'll turn now to page 150. We'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Ki ehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, v'hem negei yomam v'layla, v'avatcha al tasir mimenu li'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Now on page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. And Keelan, we need you for this one, but I'll start.
Hey ya bye bye bim 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 bam ya bye bye bim bam ya bye bye bim 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 bam ya bye bye bim bam ya bye 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 ya bye bye bim bam ya bye 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 ya bye bye bim bam Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, norat hilot osefele, norat hilot osefele. Ay bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam. Ay bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam. Ay bye 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 bye, ya bye bye bim bam. Ay bye 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 bye, ya bye bye bim bam. Malchutecha ra'uvanecha, bokeam lifnei Moshe Miriam, zeli anu ve'amru. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, b'nema kifad Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miad chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu, page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoeinu lechayim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu Malkeinu lechayim.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. We turn now to page 162, Vishamer at the top of the page.
Veshameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם עין עיני ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת שבת וינפש.
So I think I've narrowed it down to two possibilities of why the mic keeps coming in. I first thought it might just be a loose wire, but I don't think that's likely. I think what's happening is that there is a fail-safe system built into most systems so that if the sound gets too loud, it cuts it off so that it doesn't blow the speakers out. And I think I noticed that when I'm just talking, it doesn't happen. But when Keelan and I are singing and playing together, and the only difference this week was that I put the mic on a boom so that it could be closer to my mouth. And I think that's what's happening. See, the things you figure out while in mid-sentence. It's always something. It's always something. On another note, we're going to rise in body or spirit and begin the Amidah together on page 164. And then, as always, we will continue silently from there. Please go at your own pace, and when you are finished, you may be seated.
Adonai sefatai tifkach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
See what I mean? Singing on my own, it didn't cut out. I literally can't figure it out. Page 371, we'll think of those in our lives and those connected to our community who are in need of healing as we offer our Misha Berach this evening. We'll begin by thinking of those on our Misha Berach list. Think this evening of Benti Tepper, Cecilia Hirsch, Glenn Tinney, Tzipora Ahava, Gittel Bat Shmuel Ve'aviva, Oren Nachum, Bruce Steger, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Jeff Baker, David Tasher, Jim Cohn, Monique Renee Banks Rathbun, Lindsay Epstein, Dolores Michka, Sylvia Orn, Yerachmiel Ben Hinda, Paloma Chauhan, Samuel Moskowitz, Chaim Leib, Joyce Weinberg, Rick Gold, Stu Pollack, Jane London, Catherine Guarino, Emunah Chaba, Judy Stern, Miriam Kornfeld, Raz Brody, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheba Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Idol Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Menachem and Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kosoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klotman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sibia, Peretz Ben Yehuda, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Leah, Justin Banner, Tzipora Ahava Bat Yehudit Rachel, Jane Beard Cass, Amy Cass, Steve Levine, Ira Madras, Ephraim Raphael Ben Esther, and Myra Maslin. And for those who are with us this evening, if anyone is thinking of anybody that they'd like to mention. I'll invite those watching at home to add your names as well as we join together with the Mishnah Berach on page 371 in the middle of the page. Misha Beherach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu, mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shleimah, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Good Shabbos, everybody. Good Shabbos to our friends watching at home. Good Shabbos, Getlings, all the way in the back row. How you guys doing? Good. So I want to talk to you, starting with a really wonderful, remarkable experience last night. For those that are members of the temple, I know you're constantly keeping up with our e-blasts and know what's going on in every case. But we had this really wonderful event hosted by one of the most gracious and thoughtful people I know, Jesse, who is one of the co-owners of Sen Restaurant on Main Street. And he helped to arrange for a soba noodle making demonstration that took place both for some of us who were there on the third floor of the restaurant, which is a private room, which is amazing. Just to say that as a separate, I don't generally get into the private room scenarios. This was something unique for me in that, but just beautiful, perfectly designed, so peaceful, and with a great view. It's really phenomenal. And then we had a Zoom so that people who weren't going to be able to be there or didn't feel comfortable coming into a restaurant, which is a legitimate concern, were able to watch on the, and he, for half an hour, him and his chef demonstrated this remarkable and very involved process that begins with 3 ingredients. Okay, so the soba noodle, which we are all familiar with in some form or another, right? Buckwheat noodles that come from Japan, is made from buckwheat flour, some regular flour, and water. Okay, that's it. And the only thing that transforms these 3 simple things into something magical is the work of the person, or in this case, 2 people, making these noodles in tandem. And I won't rehash the entire, experience. You can go online, I'm sure, and see a demonstration of this. But it takes effort, it takes dedicated tools, it takes patience, and it takes a certain amount of repetition. So as Jesse explained, if this is something that you tried to do on the first time, chances are you're going to fail. If you tried it on the 5th time, chances are you're going to fail. And maybe by the 100th time that you've done it, you start to get to a place in which you would be comfortable serving it to somebody else, let alone in a restaurant. And he showed us that he had brought back from Japan several of these, traditional things that are necessary: the bowl, the 2 rolling pins, a really remarkably scary-looking knife that apparently is only used for the purposes of cutting soba noodles, and a little sort of thoughtful jig, I guess, to make sure that each cut was being made precisely or as close to precisely as possible. And it was one of these things where, we debate sometimes whether we should have programs at the temple that don't have an obvious Jewish connection. And I thought about it for a second. I said, what I realize is that every time we do something like this, something Jewish pops up in my head. I immediately start making connections between this thing that seems to have nothing to do and all of a sudden realizing that actually it has everything to do with who we are and what we think. So let me explain to you what I mean and what piqued my interest in particular. So one of the questions that I asked Jesse was, with something that seems so simple, how do you determine really who's a master at it? And there are most definitely masters. How do they get to a point of mastery? And what is that really all about? And he explained that actually beyond just soba, that there is a cultural word that is used in Japan for this kind of enterprise, whether you're a soba maker or a dishwasher or a street sweeper or a garbage truck driver. Whatever it is that you do, there is a word in Japanese, or my guess is there's probably a few words put together, that is known as kodawari. Anybody familiar with this term? Okay, good. See, I always like teaching new things. So it turns out, like Hebrew, Japanese is one of those languages that actually it's very hard to find one definition for something. And that one word can actually mean lots of different things. But This was the definition that I found that was sort of the most interesting. It's translated as the uncompromising and relentless pursuit of perfection. Okay? The uncompromising and relentless pursuit of perfection. Now, of course, nobody growing up in a Jewish household would ever think of these ideas of relentlessly pursuing perfection, but right, no, that's that's a sarcastic comment, right? Of course, all of us grew up with that kind of concept, right? The old sort of joke of, you need to be a doctor or a lawyer or a rabbi or whatever it is, right? This idea of constantly pushing for even better. Okay, let's take the word perfection and let's call it even better. Okay? So here, what he's talking about is that you can do the same action over and over and over again. And there are many people in Japan who have a job that has a singular purpose. And I wasn't exaggerating, right? You can do kodawari as literally a street sweeper. If you do it with your best intention that every day you are going to sweep that floor or that street with the greatest amount of concentration and effort and attention to detail, that is kodawari. So lest we think that it's only about, spiritual perfection or perfection in a sport or in a surgery or something that we at least associate with this concept of you better be perfect, otherwise it's going to go poorly. Right here, it's actually more of a cultural norm, or at least a cultural idea. Now here's where the rub comes in. The same word, as I said, can be translated also as obsessive. And I found that in some cases in modern Japan, there is something of a pushback on the concept. It can be treated almost like a pejorative, because there is, of course, right, a knife's edge when we're talking about questions of perfection. Because if one becomes too focused on it, myopically focused on it, right, in other words, you go out to be the world's most dedicated street sweeper, but you then neglect your friends, your family, other aspects of your lives, this is where that knife's edge tips over and you end up in a place of obsession. And obsession, of course, that word is neutral in and of itself, but it can indicate something that is really out of balance. So the question is, how do we consider this idea of perfection and the pursuit of perfection within a Jewish context? So there actually are a lot of different sources, but one of my favorites comes from one of the great Hasidic teachers. He's known as the Kedushat Levi, which is the name of the book that he wrote. His name was Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. He lived more or less towards the end, didn't have a very long life, unfortunately, the 18th century. And he was in Berdichev is in Ukraine. And so this is one of the most studied, most classic pieces of what's called Chassidut, Hasidic writings. So in a commentary that he has on a section of Exodus, which is less germane to the conversation, he says that we know that in the lower world, what the rabbis referred to as Olam Hazeh, okay, Olam Haba is the world to come, Olam Hazeh is what we are currently living in. This world, the world that we inhabit, this world of mortal creatures, we cannot find absolute perfection. Okay? So the Kedushat Levi says we cannot find absolute perfection. Why? Because as every creature is tied to a greater or lesser degree, to the need to satisfy physical requirements. And he doesn't go into what those physical requirements are, and we can all fill in the blanks. But in other words, he's saying that basically human life, not just human life, animal life, right? That all of us basically, we are incapable of actually achieving perfection because we have needs. Because there are things that we need, from the simplest things, breathing, eating, drinking, to the more complicated needs, right? Possessions, relationships, status, right? All of these things become part of our existence. So the idea of finding total and absolute perfection, he says, is impossible. And he says it's also a fact that joys or satisfactions that we ultimately feel in our life, that our bodies feel from deriving and fulfilling these cravings that we may have, in the end, never endure. And we always experience the lack of something as a result of it. And again, fill in the blank of it, drink water till you're sated, wait 6 hours, you will be thirsty again. Okay? Achieve something in your professional career, unless you are at the absolute apex of that career, and you most likely won't be there for long because somebody else will take that apex from you, right? You're never in a state of having achieved anything resembling perfection. I mean, other than, the occasional perfect game, pitched, and even in those cases, right, it's very rarely what we would describe actually as perfection. And he says that in his estimation, in Judaism's estimation, the difference, and the basic difference between serving Adonai and indulging one's physical, he used the word fantasies, right? Imagination of things that maybe not yet exist, that we get sort of distracted by these earthly things. And the only thing that actually we can work on to pursue, as the Japanese would pursue Kodawari, is our understanding of what it is that we are meant to do in this world vis-a-vis God. Now, all of us may feel differently about God and how we think about God and what that means to perfect our relationship with God or our obligations to God. But what basically the Kedushat Levi is saying is that, the idea of actually achieving perfection on anything other than, right, the spiritual plane is a fantasy. Now, I hope that's not disappointing news to all of you, and I hope you don't give up at whatever it is that drives you forward. He's not meaning that. He simply is meaning to draw our attention to some important distinctions. And I should go back to the Japanese concept for a second, because on the one hand, right, let's take the non-pejorative version of it. Let's take the idealistic version, the version that says it is a virtuous deed to dedicate oneself to one's passion with full heart, with the intention to every single day get incrementally better and closer towards. Okay, let's assume that that's ultimately the case. So if we are in that vein, the understanding within Kodawari is that even if that's your pursuit, it's not necessarily your goal. Now, what do I mean by that? Just because the soba noodle cutter, right, does it every day and tries to get better every day, they know that they're actually incapable of reaching absolute perfection. It's inherently understood within it. It's not about actually achieving the goal. It's about the mindset of one who is in that place with their heart and with their mind and with their hands, right? And the influence that that can have over our life if we are so dedicated to something, if we really truly give of ourselves the full attention, the full heart that goes into our various daily activities. So in Judaism, we may not be talking so much about, even though there's, I'm sure you may have experienced at some point in your life a certain pressing guilt upon you that says you must do X, Y, or Z from loved ones or concerned parents, perhaps. But in this case, right, what are we really meant to focus on within Judaism is this broader concept of what does it mean to be Eved Adonai? What does it mean to be a servant of God? And again, our definitions of God, our definitions of the relationship between us and God individually and collectively are going to be different definitions, okay? Everyone in this room right now, everyone watching, I guarantee if you ask us what does it mean to be an Eved Adonai, we would answer differently. That's fine. It's not about, right, Susie trying to do what I want to do, right? It's not about that. It's about us first asking the question of ourselves. Okay, what am I doing, right? What is my Jewish life right now? Am I actually pursuing it and my spiritual development with an intention towards building and building towards some idealistic version that is far off in our distance? And my answer to that, if I were answering myself, is probably not enough. Okay, and I'm your rabbi, so if I'm saying that, I'm giving you all, a little bit of cover here to be like, okay, maybe there is some more for me. Maybe there is something from this concept that I need to consider. Maybe the Kedushat Levi is saying that maybe I am focused too much on all of these other kinds of things. Maybe I need to narrow my focus a little bit and focus on my inner self, right? My spiritual self, my Jewish self. Okay, and how am I going to, for example, tomorrow, take a step towards creating, not perfection, let's leave the word perfection, right? But a situation that is better tomorrow than it is for me today. And I loved this experience last night of watching somebody like Jesse, who is so dedicated, again, not just to the business part of it. He's a remarkable businessman. He's doing all sorts of things. But you can see that where his passion lies was just in being in a room and on a Zoom room with people who wanted to learn about something that is dear to him, something that really means something to him, enough that, he has gone back to Japan and brought over all of these instruments, which he could have gotten on Amazon, I'm sure, right? But he wanted to make sure that what he was doing was to the best of his ability, with the best possible things that he could have. And I think there is a very clear analog, actually, in our tradition as well. We may not come at it from the exact same direction, but the truth is that this concept, if I understand it, was grown actually out of the spiritual center of most of Japanese culture, which is Shintoism, a connection to Buddhism. Right? So it comes from a religious place, but you can see how it then applies so much more broadly than that. So tonight, if nothing else, you should walk away knowing Kodawari. Let's all remember the word we learned. And the Kedushat Levi, who was a very interesting person to study. And I hope also with something of a charge, right? Something of an intention for us to say, if I'm going to look at tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, and I'm going to put aside everything else and think about my spiritual identity, my spiritual self, my Jewish journey, what am I going to do tomorrow that's going to help me move it forward? Or maybe not even forward. How am I going to move my heart more into the actions that I take? And I think that's something really every one of us can take away for not just tonight, but really every day. And it all begins with a humble noodle made out of 3 ingredients only. And as a last word, I will just say, if you haven't been to Sen, go to Sen. And if you see Jesse there, introduce yourself, say you're a member of the temple, and you would love to have some soba, and you will not be disappointed, I promise. And it's kosher. It's totally kosher. It's the most kosher thing you could find. You know? There should be soba matzah at some point or another, I imagine. Okay, on that note, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. We'll rise and turn to page 586 at the very bottom of the page. Aleinu l'shabech.
Aleinu l'shabech l'adon hakol atet gdula leyotzeh b'reshit shelo asanu k'goyei haratzon velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adaman shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu kekol hamonam v'anachnu ko'im u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'nehemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad.
Ask those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We first begin by thinking of those who've passed in our community in recent months. Dr. John Aberkin, Sylvia Alderman, Morris Dickstein, Linda Donath, Sandra Furman, Evelyn Gelb, Arthur Grossman, Elaine Grossman, Gerald Hirsch, Deirdre Klein, Jeanette Kopp, William Lippman, Audrey Lubo, Morty Lynn, Jerry Monroe, Harry Olstein, Geraldine Rosen, Harriet Roth, Jeannie Rubin, Howard Schreier, Dorothy Shupnick, Paul Silver, Marlise Silverberg, Blanche Sklar, Rita Sandra Snyder, Joan Strong Tangzilius, and Virginia Tizer. We also marked the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Samuel Aberkin, Dr. Joseph Berkeley, Gertrude Blank, Lillian Farber, Louis Feinstein, Erwin Maxwell Godinsky, Melvin Gelb, Philip Heller, Frida Siblowitz Hertz, Charles Hipsch, Arthur Kaplan, Helen Kropp, Max Lewontin, Edward Massoff, Harlan Noddle, Elizabeth Pence, Harry Shockett, Louis Schwab, Josephine Schwartz, Ralph Spinner, Arthur Spitz, Daniel Tatcon, Sophie Zucker. Any other names for Kaddish tonight? We'll rise as the mourners join together with me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayichon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shalom Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. And I should say, by the way, the only reason that I know Jesse of any connection is because of the Getling family. So thanks to Rob, Josie and Bob's son, who's a wonderful guy, has been friends with Jesse since the mid-'90s, I think. So they're all doing great things, but it was really a great opportunity and really a great time, and hopefully we'll do some more of that kind of stuff. Some quick announcements. Please join us for Shabbat services beginning tomorrow at 9:30, which will be streamed live on our website, YouTube, and Facebook. Also, you can join us here at the Whalers Church if you come through the other door on the side of the building. Again, we'll begin at 9:30. Torah study will begin at 12 o'clock on Zoom. Please note that the Social Justice Committee's 8 nights of social justice giving, even though Hanukkah is over, there are still plenty of opportunities to give and to be involved. Reminder again that Sunday, December 12th from 1 to 3, we'll still be accepting all the items that have been asked for donation to the various causes that we've connected to over the holidays. Reminder also that on Monday, Nida Mitzvah will be meeting at 11:30, Hebrew School is at 3:30 p.m., and Social Justice Committee will have its regular meeting at 5. We also have a meeting of our Anti-Semitism Committee on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Also, again, looking for anyone who wants to be involved, please contact Julie Tatcon-Kent or our office, and they can put you in touch with her. My class on Wednesday, Heschel and the Prophets, is at 12 o'clock. Hebrew School will be later that afternoon at 3:30, and then our teen group has a meeting here at the Whalers Church at 6 o'clock. Also on Wednesday is a virtual tour of the Jewish Museum of New York's exhibit Afterlives, Recovering the Lost Stories of Looted Art. Again, that'll be Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and it is a virtual tour open to all. Reminder also that this coming Thursday, our Anti-Semitism Committee has put together a very important panel discussion titled Anti-Semitism in America, Perspectives from Gen Z. So this is focused on a few young people who are connected to our temple, most of whom are now either been on college campus or returned from college campuses, and trying to get, again, a perspective of what it is like to be a young person facing a lot of the increasing challenge, especially in the online space. So we're very honored to have back with us again Eric Post, who is the Regional Director of the American Jewish Committee, AJC, here on the Long Island. And we are also joined by Rabbi Gadi Capella of the Greenport Tifereth Israel Synagogue, if I remember correctly. And he is also the president of the East End Jewish Community Council as well. So this will be again on Zoom, but requires pre-registration, so please do sign up. Friday morning, 9:15 will be my regular class, and 4 o'clock our Shabbat Together program for kids under the age of 5 here at the Whalers Church. We also have on Sunday, December 19th at 7 p.m. a virtual book talk with one of our very own, veteran journalist and member Carl Grossman, who will be discussing his new book, Cold War, Long Island. So these are all of the things I have on my list. Anything I missed, we'll miss our friends who are going away in various places, but it's always great to see you guys. And hopefully I'll figure out how to work this thing a little bit better for next week. Beyond that, stay safe, especially those driving home tonight. It is very dark and slippery, so drive slowly and carefully. It's very, very important. So beyond that, we just need a closing song for our service. Any fun requests? I don't think the word Kodawari is in any of them, but Shalom Aleichem is a great request. I will absolutely go with Shalom Aleichem, which we always forget what page it's on. Bonus points to whoever finds it first. Really close here. Migdal. Sorry, everybody. 627. 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mihi melech malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Baruchuni leshalom, malachei hashalom, Malachei Elyon,
Mihi melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mihi melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We'll turn now to page 123 and we'll rise in body or spirit for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam b'horei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabahat kodsho b'ahava u'v'ratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim ki banu bachartam ve'otanu kidashtam mikol amim beshabat kodshecha ve'ahava u'v'ratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. L'chaim to you guys. L'chaim everybody. L'chaim Keelan. And good Shabbos. Oh, before I forget, one last thing. As it happens this year, I believe that Christmas Eve, Getlings, you might be able to answer this, is on a Friday night, yes? Right, so we can't have services physically here, as you can imagine. So that Shabbat, certainly Friday night will be online only, so Keelan, I have to tell you that too. And I would assume also that you have services Christmas Day, yes, Josie? Right, so I would assume also that Saturday morning probably also will be online. So just keep an ear out for all of that, and good Shabbos, everybody. Oh, and I got it in right before the batteries died.